Hello everyone and welcome to the top tips for tendering session for Meet the Buyer North. My name is Gill Joy from Intend Business Development. Intend have been working with SDP since 2010. We've been approved suppliers and have had a great experience meeting people all across Scotland doing training for tendering development and improving people's tendering performance. I've picked on just a few areas, really, 4 areas for the focus really of this session. Hopefully these are things which are applicable to most bidders, so it doesn't actually matter if you're small, micro business, a large business, and particularly cross-sector as well. These seem to be the areas where we feel you can improve your tender performance. So I'd like to start with researching the market. I think there's quite a tendency for us all as bidders, particularly in Scotland, where everything's published in advance, quite freely accessible, to plunge into the tenders, possibly also to rely on the feed and the different tender opportunities that come out, and to kind of a little bit reactively wait for those to come in. So I'd like to say a little bit about that and how you can be a bit more proactive and improve your chances of finding the right bids, but also improve the scores that you have when you go for them. So that's the research activity. Also, the one thing to think about as you're generating all these different opportunities is to have a think about your bid, no bid criteria. This is very important. It's a bit like, I always reminded myself, it's a bit like a big sweetie shop with all the public sector tenders that come out, but a massive danger is that you end up going for too many things, not properly focused on your capability or your ability to bid at any one time. So I would definitely recommend a bid, no bid criteria checklist with these types of checklists, if you like, to say why we should or should not go for the tender. So quite a lot, even before you get to writing the tender, there's a lot you can do on the market research activity and the bid no bid. I'd like to just talk quickly about the content side, because obviously that's absolutely crucial when it comes to winning a tender. One of our biggest areas of feedback, if you like, from the tenders that we've reviewed is the fact that some tenders tend to be very generic, and buyers do not like this. You will literally get scored down if you just put in something that's very generic and doesn't actually address what the buyer's looking for. So regardless of what tender system you're using, you need to be going in, and before you even start, it's very tempting, you know, name, address, start to fill everything in. Don't do that. Read all the documents first. There's a notice there, there's specifications, there might be minimum requirements, which I think I'd referred to in the previous slide. So there might be a turnover level that's, you know, beyond your capabilities, or where you need to have partners to meet that. Read the evaluation criteria so that you know how things are going to be scored, and obviously the invitation to tender, because there could be key requests there that you need to absolutely make sure that you meet. Get your questions in as soon as possible. And normally, and I literally do this written almost by hand initially before I brief my team, just make a note of what appears to be what the client is really looking for. And that's the key message here. It's not about you saying how fantastic we are, we do this, we do that. It's all about you're the client, here's what you're looking for, and here's how we can provide it. And some of that might relate to terminology. So they might be talking about service users or customers. They might talk about project managers versus contract administrators. So all of that, you need to definitely match your response to what the client's using. And a final point here, and a lot of people don't do this, but before you put your bid in, look at your buyer's website. What are they involved in, if you're particularly in the sort of construction and trades area? Are there regeneration, sustainability, community benefits, things that you need to tap into? And again, very easy, literally just a very quick search could give you something that you could then refer to in your tender. I'm going to read it and say, this bidder knows what we're all about, and that's what's going to get you the points. When it comes to answering the scored questions, this is a problem regardless of size of company in our experience. And it's a bit like exam technique, but it's absolutely crucial that you get a decent scored answer, because this will be the difference between winning the tender potentially and not. So you need to obviously look through the various instructions, and you need to write up what I would normally call a checklist. So some of these questions can be very large, can be very general. Before you start writing and typing in the answer, do a plan, a checklist, as in what is it we need to talk about? What evidence do we need? So, you know, use evidence, not fact, evidence and facts, not opinions. Try to involve all of your team, and particularly subcontractors, because they will have the insight. I'm working on a tender at the moment for a client who's working for the NHS, and they've got 5 different people involved now to say, well, here's what we know has gone well in the contract, here's what we know that the client's worried about. And all of that is going to feed in to give them a very good targeted answer. Answer all the parts. Again, and I'm sure we've all been guilty of this. There's a big complicated question and you answer some of the parts, but not all of them. You'll immediately lose points for that. There is a difficulty sometimes with word count. I would tend to do a bigger answer first, get all your good ideas, get the evidence, and then reduce it afterwards. And then do a word search. So if you pick off, again, from that initial sort of bid review type activity, what are the key terms that the client's been asking about, and make sure that that appears in your answer. Assume no knowledge, and that's linked to this final idea of underselling. I have seen many organisations that say, oh, well, the customer knows we do this, or it's just what we do, and they've not mentioned it, and they've lost points as a result. Overselling is equally bad, so you're doing what I would call the blah blah. So it's the we are fantastic, we are high quality, that's opinion, and it's not evidence that you'll get scores for. Formatting, if you're able to put in what I would call a proper method statement, so you're not just filling in a text box. Sometimes your answers can be quite long and too many words. So please have a look at meaningful, I would say, diagrams, tables that you can convert your text into. It's much, much easier for the evaluator to read. You need to look at your numbering for your sections and make sure that it properly follows the flow. And if you do have quite a complex tender where you're being asked various questions, but it's not exactly clear how it matches the evaluation matrix, how they're going to score it, I would always put something in at the beginning that says, here's what you've asked for, here's where you'll find it. So in section 1, section 2, and so on. And then it's the evaluators can easily see that you have answered all the questions. You can use pictures and images. I think if it's, I don't know if it's evidence of, where I've seen it as things like, you know, branded workwear, your vehicle fleet. So you don't need to talk about it. You can just use an image to show that you have these things in place. And occasionally I have used text boxes to highlight a key benefit. So maybe a quote from someone that you can attribute, or just an emphasis to say, here's our added value that we think is different. Evaluators have a lot to read, and it's difficult. If you have pages and pages of text all the same, you need to help them to pull out in your presentation so they can give that score. Sustainability is the next area, which is very challenging. And this is something I think in our years of tendering support that has grown and grown and grown. And it's all linked to not just Scottish Government policy, UK policy, European, while that was applicable. And it's something, it reminds me of e-commerce that used to be a kind of bolt-on, like something you did extra, whereas now it's got to be absolutely embedded in this is how we do business. So in the past, where you could just attach an environmental policy and that was suddenly okay, it's way more demanding now. You really, really do need to evidence that these areas now are part of your normal business. So fair work first is a very important policy area in Scotland. We have the net zero response to the climate emergency and community benefits. And some of these areas here now literally can take up to 15% of the scoring. So you must get to grips with how you're going to respond to these. So what can you offer for this contract? Don't give a generic general thing. Can it be measured? And you might, in fact, you usually are asked for a method statement. How are you actually going to deliver it over the 4 years of the contract? If you're very small, that's fine. You don't have to propose something that's equivalent to a very big company. But you must make use of the support organisations. And I think prior to this presentation, you'll have seen other presentations on the Meet the Buyer session on sustainability and net zero, for example. So in Scotland, we have plenty of organisations that will help small businesses, often free of charge as well. And finally, the tender library. If you're submitting 1 or 2 tenders a year, okay, it's maybe not essential. However, if you're habitually putting in tenders and proposals, and that's one of your main routes to market, you're going to waste a huge amount of time trying to find responses, looking for evidence, looking for good material. So a final recommendation is look at your tender search activity, your calendar, keep obviously a note of all your completed tenders and the results and feedback. But also for every tender that's done, you need to start to store the information in certain, what I would call silos, different areas. And I've just given some suggestions here. You can organise this as you wish. Most people do it just in a kind of file structure. Teams is very useful now if you're using that for your tender library as well. But it will save you a huge amount of time searching around for content. So we're done. I think we'll move on to questions as part of the follow-up live session. But just to say thank you very much, everyone, and wish you well with your tender submissions. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you to Gill Joy for their top tips for tendering session there with the Supplier Development Programme. I'm delighted to now open the live Q&A panel with our expert trainers. For those of you who do not know, I'm Gillian Cameron and I'm the Programme Manager with the Supplier Development Programme. We work with all 32 local authorities in Scotland and a range of other public sector bodies, including Scottish Government, to encourage and engage with micro, small and medium-sized businesses and obviously supported businesses too. Our aim of the programme is to ensure that Scottish SMEs and supported businesses have access to free tender training and a range of information on promoting contract opportunities that are up and coming to keep you up to date with what those opportunities that are in the public sector, including some of the key infrastructure projects that are out there. Of course, best of all, SDP is free if you're a business based in Scotland. We've recently refurbished our tender training courses to include more practical exercises, part of the training workshops, and we have something to suit everyone. So if you've never bid for a contract before, or if you're looking to improve your tendering skills, or indeed want to understand more about some of the key policy areas and contract management, then we'll have a course for you. And we're delighted to announce that new for 2021 is a brand new course all about pricing tenders. It was an area that was often highlighted by suppliers that we would welcome further guidance on. So we're delighted to be delivering that. So you can also book through our online website to access our e-learning portal. We have a new course that's running about quick quotes, where you can find out how to build your supplier profile, increase the visibility of your company, understand how the quick quote process runs, and successfully prepare and submit a quote. So we do look forward to you using that service and giving us your feedback. Now, I would just like to welcome the panel members today. I have Julie Caughey and John Clark, Gill Joy. I'd just like them to quickly introduce themselves before we move on to the questions. John, can I ask you to go first?
Okay, thanks very much indeed, Gillian. I'm John Clark. I run a procurement consultancy called JR Management, and I've been working with SDP on Supplier Development Programme courses for quite some years now. Happy to talk to anybody who's got something they want to discover a bit more about.
Thank you, John. Julie?
Well, hi there. Yeah, my name's Julie Caughey. I was Corporate Procurement Manager for East Lothian Council for 15 years. And in 2013 set up my consultancy called Caughey Solutions Limited. I do work with local authorities, housing associations on the procurement side, as well as on the bid side, and I'm a practitioner for APMP, which is the professional membership for bid writing.
And Jill.
Hi everyone, so Jill from Intend. We're based in Scotland but also the Netherlands, and we work with companies, third sector organisations, primarily over here for national tenders, local authorities, regional, but we have quite a lot of business now working on international tenders, so World Bank, European work and so on.
That's great, thank you very much, panel. Right, without further ado, we're going to get started now. You can type your questions into the right-hand side of today's panel and ask the questions. We've already got a whole lot coming in now. We also have a poll running today because we want to know if today's session has helped you, encourage you to bid more for public sector contracts. So please make sure that you also put in your poll result. So the first question I've got here is, should there be a difference in how you structure your response for an ITT, an invitation to tender, and a quick quote? Julie, would you like to go with that first of all?
The answer really depends on the tender itself and what the instructions say. So quite often the public sector, they don't allow you to do a free form presentation or proposal. They're actually asking you to answer specific questions. So if that's the case, then you must do that. It's actually much easier for the evaluator to give you points if you followed the questions exactly. And if you use the questions to copy them down into your answer and then turn them into headings, whether there's bullet points or whatever, and you use that structure to then inform your bid. And as Jill said in the video, you can put little bullet points in there yourselves of key things that you want to say that are features and benefits of what you can provide in response to this tender. But really following their lead really on what they're asking you for is of vital importance.
That's great, thanks for that, Julie. Next question is about net zero targets. Are they started to be included in tenders? John, Jill, have you been seeing these in some of the bids you've been supporting on?
Well, I haven't seen them specifically so far, but there has always been questions on sustainability and what you can do to help the buyer as an organisation reduce their carbon footprint in operating any particular contract. But they are likely to become much more prevalent and much more prominent in the future.
I've certainly seen a move now towards not just how will you respond to the climate emergency, but how will you measure that throughout the contract? And I think that's where the real challenge lies, even for larger companies, to be honest. So that's where there is that need to go to some of the support groups to see if there's a simple way to help you establish a baseline at least, and do some simple measuring throughout a contract.
Yes, and at today's event, we've got a couple of presentations that are talking about net zero toolkits. So please make sure that you look into those presentations that are happening today, because there's a wealth of information that's out there to help you. Right, moving on to the next question now. Where we have built a strong relationship with a buyer, is it best not to mention that in a tender response? I.e., is this a positive or not? Jill, do you want to take that one?
I think it is a real positive, but you have to be very careful how you present it. And I think I referred to our client that worked with the NHS in the presentation. What you need to do is demonstrate your insight into how the contract works. I'm looking at one today where there's a 2-page document from the client saying how they want the collaborative working relationship, and they're very explicit. So that's another clue that you can sort of pin it round about how you've actually worked with them, that kind of shared risk, those kind of things. But it's not enough just to say we've been a client for X years and we've done really fantastic. That's kind of your opinion, if you like. You need to get some statistics round about that.
Okay, thank you. About a new business. I've been trading for less than a year, and it's kind of intimidating, and I haven't ended up bidding at all. Would I have to wait till I've been trading longer to bid for a public sector contract? John, would you like to maybe take that one?
I mean, the difficulty for new starts is that they don't have a track record in dealing with the public sector, but they will have a track record from their previous employment in delivering the kind of services that they're bidding for. I mean, clearly, if they don't have that sort of track record, then they're wasting their time. But you can use your track record in previous experience from other employers to highlight how good you're going to be in delivering whatever the service is.
That's great. Thank you for that. We've got a question here about getting paid on time, saying, I have 4 employees and cash flow is important. What should I do if I don't get paid within days? Julie, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, well, the public sector does have a target to pay invoices within 30 days. So if you're not being paid, I would probably ask why that is. One thing that most organisations ask you to have is a purchase order, and to put that purchase order on your invoice. That speeds things up, because usually that means there's an automated process at the other side when they receive it. So if it matches the PO and it's the same amount, then it just flies through their system. Whereas if there's no PO, then it can get held up and has to be treated as a manual process. So that would be one of the first things: is are you complying with the process? Are they complying with their own process? Because sometimes the organisation should raise purchase orders and they're not raising purchase orders, and you shouldn't really suffer as a result of that. So quite often the founding worker will ask for a purchase order at the beginning of it, and it can take quite a while for that to come through by the time they get you added onto the system as a supplier and raise the POs. So check out what their process is and find out what the problem is. It could be there's a particular person that's holding it up, or it could be that there's a problem with the way that you lay your invoices out or whatever. So just find out what the root cause of the problem is first and tackle that.
That's great. Thank you for that. Now we've got one about quick quote. Person is saying they've updated their keywords, but they're still not getting invited to quick quote. What else should they do to get invited to a quick quote? John, would you like to take that one? You've got
a 4,000 character description of your capabilities as well as the keywords, and that is also searchable by the buyers. One of the tricks might be that if you look at the alert process that you've set up, track the CPV codes, Common Procurement Vocabulary codes, that apply to what it is you're doing, and you can actually incorporate some of those CPV codes into your 6 keyword or phrases or into your narrative, and that then might help find you on a particular search.
Can I add something just quickly, Gillian, as well?
Yeah.
We encourage our clients to do some research on Public Contract Scotland, look at past contract notices and contract registers, because often there's a named person. So if you're involved in supply of PPE or whatever, it's perfectly acceptable outside of a tender situation to get in touch, maybe with some of the smaller public bodies. There's loads, hundreds literally. Speak to them directly and say we're interested in quick quotes because they're not published and buyers have trouble, I think, they tell us as well, trying to find good suppliers to send a quick quote out to. So
Yeah.
a quick message saying we're on PCS, you'll find our supplier finder profile and try and prompt a little bit more interest.
Yeah, I think that's a very good top tip. I mean, obviously events like today's Meet the Buyer is an opportunity for suppliers to come along and introduce themselves so that local authorities or public buyers understand what businesses are in their local area. There's a very big push in trying to engage local businesses. And that's really what today's event is about, is giving that forefront and the opportunity for suppliers to engage. Right, I think we've just got one final question here. Should I include travel costs between islands and the Highlands in my pricing when I'm bidding? So that's quite an interesting one. Obviously, we're talking about we're in the north of Scotland here. So how do we go about looking at that? John, you want to pick that up?
Well, one of the most important things about winning any contract is it has to be profitable. So you need to cover all of your costs in your pricing for the buyer, the buyer at the end of the day. There's absolutely no point at all in winning work that's going to cost you money. So if there's a lot of travel involved in delivering the service, then that needs to be covered as a cost. It's one of your overheads. You can't ignore it.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Well, I'm conscious of time now and we're just about at the end of our session. So I would like to thank our panelists today for being involved in the session and to thank you, the suppliers who've participated and put through your questions. And we will collate these after this. SDP has been working to provide a vital link between suppliers to ensure that there is contact available. Obviously, in these troubling times, a lack of face-to-face is not possible, but we do hope we will be able to return to that at some point. But our virtual events are running, and please keep an eye on the SDP website so you can see what events are coming up so you can connect with the public sector and also find out about what contract opportunities are coming up too. We're here to support you, and our next training course focuses on how to make the most of using Public Contracts Scotland, and that's running on Thursday, 9th of September. So please make sure you book to attend that if you want to find out more on some of these top tips about how to get the most out of public sector contracts. You can stay connected with SDP on our latest news by following us on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And we do hope we're going to see you at some of our events today. Now, you still have an opportunity to listen to some more of our speakers today and also to look around the stands. Make sure you take the time to go to all the different stands we have on today. We have a great range of public sector bodies that are keen to engage with suppliers and to hear about the services and goods that you offer and to also get your name out there. And this is part of the process of being able to engage with the public sector and then get yourselves on Public Contracts Scotland to fill out your supplier profile. We also have, as well as our online courses, there's our e-learning available to people. So make sure that if you haven't had a chance to look at that yet, we'd really welcome you to join our e-learning session. It's about quick quote. So hopefully that can help you understand how to get in front of the buyers, what you need to do to put into your quick quote, and how you can go about doing that. So I think that remains all for me to say today. I think we've had a good session. We've had some good questions in. Is there anything else anyone would like to add as a final session top tip? Julie, maybe?
What I would say is that use the time wisely. So don't think, oh, that one doesn't close until October, so I've got 4 weeks, and put that on the back burner. As soon as it comes out, have a read through everything, download all the documents, have a read through, highlight the relevant sections, make notes on the front of it, if that's the way that you work, or electronically if that's the way that you work, and start to sort of build your picture of what you want to do. I see it like I'm actually doing a bit of a painting. And, you need time to step back from it and have a look and can contemplate it, let it sink in. More things will occur to you as time goes on. So get going as soon as possible. Don't leave it to last minute. And see if you can get a third pair of eyes to have a look over it that maybe had nothing to do with the bid process.
That's great. Thank you so much for that, Julie. And thank you to all our presenters today and to you listening in. Thank you very much.